At the age of 25, after she finished her graduate degree, Nina's parents presented her with a marriage proposal all the way from Canada. Despite her worries and uncertainties, she tried to trust that they knew what was best for her. Moving to a foreign land without any support system felt stressful, but she held on to hope, believing that she could manage whatever her fate had in store for her. Eventually, Nina found herself in Canada, having obtained permanent residency through sponsorship from her spouse. However, her journey was not without challenges. Dealing with language barriers made it hard for her to understand the country's laws, which left her feeling both stressed and alone. On top of that, not having Canadian education credentials stopped her from getting a job, making her even more frustrated and dependent on her husband. Nina's marriage, too, lacked emotional and romantic closeness. Her husband was distant and rarely spoke to her. Even with the tough times, Nina eventually discovered joy in taking care of her home and kids. She channeled her love and commitment into making a loving space for her children. She found meaning in the everyday things that filled her day. But one day, everything changed for Nina. Her husband confessed that he had another woman back in his home country and wanted to bring her to Canada with a visitor visa. This shocking betrayal left Nina feeling shattered and powerless, not knowing what to do next. Later, she chanced upon learning from the news that her husband could face deportation if authorities found out about his second marriage. Nina considered reporting the marriage, but instantly felt a heavy burden as she considered the awful chance of her husband getting deported if she reported the marriage to the authorities. This could leave their children without a father. As she sat deep in thought, a flood of questions overwhelmed her. Who would take care of her kids if he had to go? Who could she rely on to handle such a complex and sensitive situation? The idea of her kids being apart from their father, someone they had a strong connection with, was a painful shock. Canada was the only home they knew, and returning to her country of origin was not an option. The prospect of navigating the complexity of life in Canada alone left her feeling powerless and lost. Her lack of experience, credentials, and a support system only added to her overwhelming sense of isolation. While she yearned for someone to turn to, Nina also grappled with conflicting emotions regarding her husband's fate. Despite the emotional betrayal, he had worked hard to build a life in Canada for over 25 years, and uprooting him would have profound emotional, mental, and financial consequences. Could she bear the weight of making such a life-altering decision for him? Would he be able to provide for her and the children if he had to start anew? And the thought of her children potentially never forgiving her for disrupting their lives added to this distress. In her silence, Nina felt trapped in a sea of limited options, intensifying her sense of powerlessness. Like Nina, other survivors often experience feelings of helplessness. To empower them, offering choices and support is crucial in fostering belief in their own strength. Dramatic measures like deportation, and especially using immigration status to resolve domestic issues, only limit survivors' agency. Instead, providing community services, healthcare, therapy, and social support are effective strategies for rebuilding their lives. Enforcing immigration acts for cases of domestic abuse reinforces the misconception that gender-based violence is exclusive to immigrant communities, thereby exacerbating the isolation of this issue. Canadian challenges, including domestic abuse, must be tackled internally with involvement from diverse stakeholders like community organizations, support services, and the general public. If you or someone you know are currently experiencing gender-based violence of any form, please visit www.casa.ca/gbvstudy for an online list of resources you can consult.